microscope that is made by Olympus. It does several types of microscopy. It does dark field, bright field, and phase contrast. The dark field was primarily developed about 12 years ago. It's been used in Germany for years for evaluating metabolic disorders and cancer. This specific microscope, because of this section right here, has only been out about a year. Before, if you wanted to do all those types of microscopy, you'd have to change objectives and change this stand down here. This is the first time in a microscope all this has been combined. Up here we have a very powerful video camera. It can get more powerful than what we want when we combine it with the high-powered objectives and the zoom lens on this to where we're seeing such small pieces that it doesn't really concern us. I want to show a couple of things here and show you basically how I'm evaluating it and explain how some of the changes are occurring. I will show one of the Qigong methods that I learned from Jim Lacey. I won't explain in great detail how it's done. I will leave that up to Jim. As I switch to do the meditation, you'll have to change the focus on me so I'm not out of the lens. But first I'd like to draw a sample here of blood, of my own blood. These are sterile glass pieces. They're going to be sitting out so long so they can become contaminated while they're sitting out, so we're not going to evaluate things like yeast or bacteria or things like that may see because they may just be falling on there. Instead, I want to show some of the basic things with the blood components, and then later I'll explain some of these in detail. We're simply going to take a drop of blood and put it on one of these slides, cover slips here. And we're going to look at this under phase contrast, which requires an oil immersion to use as a medium so that we can see what is going on here. And we'll be able to look at it on this TV screen, and I'll have them zoom in on the TV screen once I get some things brought up here so you can see what I am seeing. Okay, what we're looking at is my blood live on the TV screen here. I'd like to have you zoom in if you can. Primarily what we have in the picture here are red blood cells. Let me move this just a bit so we can... Okay. Is that zoomed in on the TV screen?
Mm-hmm.
Is it in focus and everything?
I think so.
These are red blood cells. You'll notice that they're stacked up. They're stuck together. That's not how they should be. This right here is a white blood cell. It's known as a neutrophil. This type of white blood cell is like our police officers. The police officers go and get bad guys. In this case, this thing, as we watch it, it's starting to move down this way. You can see it moving here. You may not be able to see it with that type of focus, but it's moving down this way. And it goes around and gets things like bacteria and tries to kill viruses through a process known as phagocytosis. You might be able to see some of these black jumpy things in here. That's fat. I want to try to move and show you what a single red blood cell should look like. Okay. These two right here are primarily what all the red blood cells should look like. When they clump together like this, that's not good. There are several factors that keep red blood cells separate. One of them is they're smooth, and these are fairly smooth, and that makes them more slippery. Second is they'll get an oily coat around them from dissolved fats in the blood and make them slippery. dissolved proteins in the blood should have a negative electrical charge, and that electrostatic charge will help keep the blood cells separate. And lastly, when they're fully oxygenated, oxygen will cause them to have a negative electrical charge, and that will cause a magnetic repulsion to force them apart, so they won't stick together here like magnets. I'm not going to go into fine detail on this. I want to show you basically how the meditation and how the blood work's being done. And you can see some of the blood still moving around here due to different factors. And here we see a few more isolated red blood cells. But for the most part, as we look through here, if you're looking, just as I scan, there's nothing but a big clump of red blood cells. They're all sticking together. We have found several types of things that influence this. The enzyme level is very important, and there are certain enzymes that will break this up. This sort of thing, this clumping of red blood cells, does predispose a person to strokes, blockage of the arteries, because a red blood cell can only go through a capillary one at a time. And when they stick together like that, it does predispose a person to clotting. Enzymes affect it. We've found acupuncture affects it, and I've also found that Qigong is very appropriate. And I will explain why. But first I will do actually a Qigong. I won't do the full thing. We'll just do a partial, and then we'll take a follow-up blood test. So I'm going to stand up now and do one known as monk begs for rice. Qigong is actually, in a way, a form of acupuncture, in that it balances out the body's electrical system. Acupuncture, you need to go to a specialist, and with Qigong, you can do it on your own. This one is known as Monk Begs for Rice. The details can be explained by Jim later. This will take about 5 minutes to do. I won't do the full meditation, and that usually takes about 10. I'm now going to take another drop of blood. I've done research with this, and others have done research. And of course, one of the questions that comes to anybody's mind, or a lot of people's mind once they do this, is, okay, so you get some changes with Qigong. What would happen if you did running or walking or weightlifting? And we have done those things. I've done those things, and other people have done those things. With a lot of the exercise, we find that it actually increases this clumping together of blood because, especially with anaerobic work, the blood becomes less oxygenated, so there's less electrical charge. The pH of the blood will become more acidic due to lactic acid, most likely. And that denatures the proteins. The proteins lose their electric charge, and you lose that electrostatic charge. And due to free radical damage, because of the chemical processes that are going on, you get red blood cells that are less smooth, and they tend to stick together because of the jagged edges, or the rougher edges. You will see free radical damage after long, heavy running, or long, or even short, but intense periods of weightlifting. With walking, we don't see the beneficial changes, but we will show you a couple of interesting things. Not that there aren't beneficial things from walking, but not the changes that I want to try to show you here. A person may think, well, how would you get changes that quickly? Keep in mind that the blood circuits through the body several times within 5 minutes. All the blood that you see has passed through my lungs several times in the time that it took me to do that meditation. And came in contact with the oxygen, for one thing. Believe it or not, most foods you eat have an effect on your body almost immediately. There's people with allergies that as soon as they eat the food they're allergic to have a reaction. I mean, immediately. Nitroglycerin will affect the heart tremendously within a couple of minutes, if not a couple of seconds. A lot of people don't know that nitroglycerin originally was a homeopathic cure. A lot of medical doctors don't know it. A lot of medical doctors who ridicule homeopathic medicine don't realize that nitroglycerin was originally, according to my understanding, a homeopathic cure. So if we did the full meditation, we'd see it a little bit different. But you'll notice now, most of the red blood cells exist as single entities. You can see that they're moving freely. You'll see some movement occurring in these as we sit here. Now, of course, those of you out there who are certified in microscopy, as I am, or are very familiar with anatomy, will notice that there's problems there. I have some megaloblastic anemia, which usually indicates a B12 deficiency. But we're not really wanting to evaluate the morphology here as much as evaluating this effect. I'll scan through some of the blood so you'll know that I'm not just picking an isolated area. We'll go over here to the side. And you'll see that in this area, most of the blood cells also exist as single entities. Go back to the other direction. Try to keep this in focus. And you'll see that most of the blood exists as single entities. I will go up. Whoop, get an air bubble. Pretty much wherever we go. And the clumping that we do see is much less. We'll go down here. And you can see that they are moving. They're much less clumped. There's still some going on. And in a minute, I would like to show you some different trials and explain some different things that are going on. Part of this effect is due to changes in pH because of the oxygen. Part of it's due to the electrical charge from oxygen. And part of it is electrical. As I will explain in a minute, proteins are electrically charged. And there is a bioelectric phenomenon that occurs with this. Also, the deep abdominal breathing causes a pump on the lymphatic system and helps plasma proteins get back into the lymphatic system. Trapped plasma proteins in tissue will cause pain because they'll trap water, and the water will cause swelling and edema and puffiness, and they'll block that area and make it stagnant. There's an old Chinese saying of qi follows blood. To a large extent, that may be true. If qi is electrical in nature and it's related to plasma proteins, then when the plasma proteins get outside of the blood and they get an interstitial fluid, they will draw water to them because of hydrophilic tendencies, causing some puffiness, some bogginess. They'll cause stagnation in that area, and that will result in pain, and also it will result in very low oxygenation of the area, which is called hypoxia, and hypoxia is very, very painful. If you put a tourniquet on your arm and cut off the blood flow there so that it becomes hypoxic, you will suffer exquisite pain. And so, qi is electrical on a blood level also because of the electrical nature of proteins. And qigong does affect the nature of proteins both because of getting them back into the lymphatic circulation that are trapped in interstitial fluid, and changing the pH of the blood, and creating a change in the electrostatic nature of the blood. Now we'll try to explain that a bit more in detail here in just a second. But first I would like to show you the electromeridian imaging evaluation. Hi. At this part